Hey guys, so in light of what's happening on the world stage right now, especially with our neighbors in the US, I wanted to share a recording of a session that I had with a client a couple weeks ago, and it's referencing the balancing of the divine feminine and the divine masculine energy. So I thought that this would be really relevant, and this channeled information from that session would be helpful to some. So I wanted to share that with you guys. Please enjoy. Okay, so what I'm seeing so far is it's almost like layers in a cake. There's different layers, and in each layer there's different states of awareness and different consciousness. So I think we're going to be tapping into some specific aspects of that, especially as they relate to the feminine and the masculine. So the different layers, it's different states of being. So masculine would be one state of being, feminine would be the other. It makes the cake the whole, if that makes sense. So I want to take a look at, let's start with the masculine first. So I'm going to call forward the masculine energies that are held within your Akash and your dormant and active soul essence. Okay, so I'm seeing what appears to be almost like a native or an indigenous person. They feel very compassionate and very connected to nature. It's a masculine energy, so this is a man. And his sort of primary focus is, it's the connection to the earth and the world around him. So he very much honors the sacredness of nature, and he's very much aware of his connection both physically and energetically, spiritually, to the life force that exists in nature, and that he understands that there's no separation between himself and the spirit of nature. He's part of that spirit of nature. He's connected to it. So I see him, he listens to the ground, something that he does. So he'll walk around and he'll feel the ground and the vibrations of the earth with his feet, and he uses that to navigate, but he'll also listen to the ground. So I don't know if this was like a practice that indigenous peoples used for, I'm not sure why they would do that. Okay, so he's showing me that it's connected to, he's listening to the vibration of the earth when he's doing that. He's connecting at a mental level, because when you're doing it through the feet, you're connecting through the physical level. When you press your ear to the earth, it's like you're connecting at a mental level. So he's listening for the information that's coming through. And I think that he would use this for tracking, navigation as well. Yeah, it's like he can orient himself without a map or a compass or anything like that, because he can feel the vibrations of the earth and he can listen to the vibrations of the earth, and through those two he can orient himself. Wow, that's really cool. So yeah, such a whole different way of being, just very, very connected, very little separation between man and nature. And that's the essence of this divine masculine energy. And he's very active in that. So he's not a passive, he's not just receiving, which would be more of the feminine. He's very much action oriented. So he's always going somewhere, he's always doing something. And it feels like his primary sort of, again, that primary focus, it's like he moves to different locations. He goes to different areas for particular reasons. So part of it is like hunter-gathering type of behavior, where looking for food and things like that. But it's very connected to the natural flow. So if there's an area with an abundance of animals and fruits, he'll be drawn to that area, as it's almost like an offering that the earth is giving him. So if, for example, if he was drawn to another, or if he found another area, he would be intuitively able to feel if that area was saying, no, you can't take these animals, no, you can't take these plants. So it's very consent-based is what it feels like. And he's always checking for consent with the earth, with nature, with the animals, with the plants, everything around him. He's like, can I enter into this area? Can I take from this abundant, stream where there's lots of fish? If the answer is no, he respects it and he knows that the abundance will always be there, it will be provided. So he's going out, he's probing, he's doing his hunter-gathering, but he's also very aware. It's not like the current masculine energy is very domination based, so it's not consent based. It's like, this is a resource and I'm just going to take it without asking. And so that's where a lot of that lack energy comes in. And he's coming from a place of abundance, which is knowing that if he gets a no, there will always be another yes coming afterwards. So if he's told like, no, this area is not, you can't fish from here, you can't hunt it here, you can't take from these plants, he doesn't hold that against, and he just completely understands, and he moves to the next thing because he knows that there's going to be more abundance coming. Because he's connected, he feels the abundance of the earth. It's tangible to him. It's beautiful. Okay. So this is an example, a layer in that whole self of that divine masculine energy. And I'm wondering if this is a past life for you, or if this is part of that greater web of consciousness that we're all connected to, right? This is somebody else living that life, and we're able to tune into it based on the frequency of the divine masculine, as that person is an example of that. I'm not really sure. I don't think either way it really matters, because really we're all one at the end of the day. So whether this was a personal past life for you or an extension past life, it's kind of the same thing. It's just from different perspectives. So let me see if there's anything else here, an example of the divine masculine that wants to come forward to be brought to your conscious awareness and ultimately integrated and embodied. Okay, our indigenous friend is not finished yet. He's coming forward with it feels like soul knowledge. So he wants to teach you how to do this. Okay, he says, go to the land. First put your feet on the earth and then put your hands on the earth. So not just grounding through the feet, but putting the hands down onto the earth, bare hands and bare feet. He says, crouch like that, like an animal, because we are animals and we need to remember that we are connected to nature. We are part of nature. Man has become disconnected from his true nature, his wildness. This is what he's saying to me. And so we need to get down on all fours and remember where we came from, what we are. It's not shameful. It is beautiful. It is sacred. And he's showing me rolling around in the grass, like when you would do as a kid. Roll around on the earth, roll around, connect with it, get playful. I mean, animals do this too, right? They'll run outside and then they'll start rolling around in the grass. And I always kind of wondered why they do that. And what he's showing me is that it's a form of connection. It's like cuddling up with your mom. And the earth is our mother. And so when we go out there and we roll around, it's like we're nuzzling into her and we're connecting with that energy. It's like we're getting ourselves all nice and covered in Mother Earth, in nature. And the energy of that, it gets into our aura, and it helps us remember who we are and our true nature, as well as that protective energy that I feel like it has. It's a playful, protective, nurturing, loving, abundant type of energy that I'm feeling from that rolling around in the grass. Okay, he's showing me walking up to a tree. Put your hand on the tree, close your eyes, and speak to it from your heart, is what he's saying. It says communicate to it through its mental telepathy, a soul level telepathy with the plant, with the animal, with the tree in this case. He says trees are emissaries. What's an emissary? I think it's like a messenger or like a guardian, something like that. But he says, the trees are emissaries. And you go to them. They're like gatekeepers is kind of what I'm seeing here. They represent all of nature. So if you disrespect the trees, you disrespect the earth, you disrespect all of nature. And he's like, we don't disrespect the trees. And it's interesting because what he's showing me is that they will use trees in their building, for wood and for fire and things like that. But he's like, again, it needs to be consensual. You need to ask the tree and you need to receive a yes if you're going to use it. If you just cut it down without thinking about it, without asking it, without expressing gratitude, you are raping, is what he's saying. You're raping the earth. And so this is the healthy masculine is consent. Consent, which means being aware, being mindful, being connected, being empathetic, being compassionate. So he's checking for consent, he's connecting, he's communing with God, with source through nature, because that's what nature is. It's a representation of that. It's an embodiment of that. He says, put your hand on the tree, close your eyes, and feel through the heart, send messages through the head, and allow yourself to receive the information that comes back to you from the tree. And he says you have to be very connected to your body to be able to feel and know the answer. If you are disconnected from your body, you are disconnected from nature, and therefore you are disconnected from source. Because the body is a representation of the wild natural self. It is connected to nature. It is part of nature. It is built of the same things. It is born of the earth. And it will return to the earth in the natural cycles of life. So we need to be very mindful of the body. This is another masculine trait, being very mindful of the body and aware, being very in tune is what it feels like. Very in tune with that physical, intuitive, but it's more, so the feminine would be more of that receptive, intuitive, and that state of being. It's a much more animalistic is the only word that I can use to describe it. Wild would probably be another word that would suit, but it's not in the scary sense, not in the aggressive sense. It's very much just in tune with nature, in the harmonization of connection with all things. And that also implies sex and death, as well as life. So I think that's where humanity has disconnected, and we as individuals have disconnected from nature, is because A, we're disconnected from our body, B, we've disconnected because we fear certain aspects of our nature, such as how we put taboos around sexuality, or we fear and don't want to talk about death. We don't honor death. We don't even understand death. So we've been disconnected. And then we disconnect from nature by not putting our feet on the earth, by not listening, by not feeling, by living on pavement with shoes. He's looking at me like, what are you guys doing? It just doesn't make sense to him at all. He's like, you're so alienated from who you are. You're so alienated from life. All the rest of life goes on in its natural state, and here you are thinking that you're separate from it when you're not. We're not. So he's bringing awareness to you, connecting again with nature, getting back in tune with your natural wildness, your natural state of being, as this is the joy that is in your soul. This is the joy that your soul is seeking, is connecting with nature, being your true essence, connecting with the wildness of life that lives within you. In every cell of your being, you are a combination of God and source, and that physical, animalistic, beautiful, natural being. Merging and integration of those two things. It's both. It's not one or the other, it's both. And that's a beautiful representation too around the balance between feminine and masculine energies. It's two things coexisting as one, two things in harmony and in balance. Integration of two polarities or two seeming opposites that actually are two sides of the same energy. Thank you, thank you, thank you to this soul that came forward to share this information, this native individual. And he gave me a name, which I'll have to look up afterwards, but it sounded like Mawahe or something like that. So thank you, Mawahe. Okay, so let's go to representation of the divine feminine and the embodiment and integration of that energy. Wow, okay. So again, they've taken me back to that Atlantean or Lemurian. I get those two kind of mixed up. Sometimes they feel similar. But there's this past version, and she's the high priestess. She's part of the Rose Temple. We've talked about her before. She's come here before. She's an aspect of you, of your higher self, of your oversoul. She's also, because we use the word past, she uses the word parallel. It's parallel occurrence of you, different offshoot occurring at the same time, and embodying the energy that you're wishing to connect to. So by bringing awareness to this aspect of self, you open up the lines of communication, essentially. They're showing me like two connecting points of energy that through conscious awareness, it's like it opens the floodgates and all of that information can go back and forth. So she's there. She's a representation of the divine feminine. She's showing me herself standing, and she feels very powerful. She's standing on what looks like a cliff's edge almost, and she's looking out over the ocean, which makes sense. The ocean is connected to the feminine energy as well. The sea, water, connected to emotions, the moon, all of these traditionally ruled by the goddess or the divine feminine. She's wearing a dark purple dress or robe, got a rose clasp right over the chest. Yeah, she's honoring her sacred space. So she likes to come here to essentially just be. She needs space to just be. She's not actively trying to do anything, and that's important for her. She honors that time for herself. So she goes to this area where she can feel the wind and the earth beneath her feet, and she can look down over the ocean and just be. And she connects, she receives the beingness of the air as the wind whips her hair, and she receives the beingness of the water as the salt spray reaches her nose. She receives the beingness of the light that touches the top of her head, and she receives the beingness of the earth that tickles her toes and vibrates beneath her feet. She receives all of these through mindful awareness. So interesting that both the divine masculine and the divine feminine revere the embodiment of this divine awareness, being very mindful, open, aware, receptive, qualities of that on both sides, which I find interesting. The difference being is that the masculine, he felt more active, so he always had a goal in mind, he was working towards something, and he was using those receptive feminine qualities as a tool. Whereas it feels like the feminine, it's the other way around. So she is that state of being. She's not using that as a tool or a part of herself. She is that. And that state of being then needs to be supplemented with the tool of doing. So she's very mindful of that balance within herself, and her form of doing is not so much goal-oriented or seeking. Her form of doing is allowing what is to flow through her. So I see her creating almost what looks like crystal grids, but she's using flowers, like a flower grid. And again, she's connected with the plants. She's asked for consent. She's expressed gratitude. She's using them for a sacred purpose. Each individual plant has consented to. So she's using those flowers to make this beautiful grid, and she's allowing that energy and that inspiration to just move through her. So she knows where to place the flowers. She knows what energy she's connecting to and receiving and allowing to flow. There's so much compassion that I feel from her. And at the same time, there's this detached awareness. So she's simultaneously embodied and subjective and compassionate and feeling, but she's also observing. She's also just very mindful of everything from that sort of full perspective. So she's both, the aspect of that duality within the self unified in her experience. looking at these two polarities, the feminine and the masculine, they actually, in their divine essence, they feel quite similar. The real difference is because they both embody those same qualities of mindfulness, compassion, consent, empathy, awareness, action. They really embody these same qualities. It's just in different ways. And it looks a little different, or it feels a little different, but it's really the same thing. Oh, that's the whole point. Okay, so she's showing me that the way that we look at the masculine and the feminine here at this time is that they're two separate things. That we all have both, but that they're two separate things. And what she's showing me is they're not separate, they're the same thing. It's just energy, and aligned energy at that. And it feels and can be expressed in a multitude of different ways. The true embodiment, the real embodiment of it's those same principles, those same qualities, those same states of being across the board. So if you want to balance your feminine and masculine, it's really just about connecting to those qualities that kind of bridge the gap between both. So beingness, doingness, receptivity, action, feeling, compassion, connection, and consent. Those are the qualities that bridge the gap between those two polarities because they're the same energy. Like north and south are polarities of the magnetic field. They are both magnetic energy. It's just different polarities. It's the same thing with the feminine and masculine. They are the same energy, just different polarities. Slightly different expression. One pushes out, one pulls in, but they're the same energy. So embodying one, you necessarily embody the other because you can't differentiate, you can't parcel them apart. So they're saying, if you're a female and you resonate as a feminine, you still have those masculine qualities. And to bring balance to those within yourself, it's about embodying the higher expressions of those main qualities that they mentioned before. Being in a state of alignment with those, it naturally puts you into harmonization or balance with those two energies within yourself. Is there anything else from this beautiful high priestess that she would like to share? She's showing me what looks like a pearl inside, what are those, oysters, clams? Yeah, inside one of those. And the pearl is shining with light from within, so it's lit on the inside. It feels very much like, the cliche is pearl of wisdom. It's kind of what it feels like. It feels like a pearl of information or knowledge. Awareness is what she's calling it. Yeah, so knowledge is just awareness. Oh, and I'm also connecting that pearl and the clamshell to the feminine energy of Venus, Aphrodite. Isn't she often portrayed as emerging from the sea in a giant oyster like that, or clamshell? So there's again that connection to that archetype, that goddess energy of the divine feminine. So sensuality, beauty, and not like physical beauty, but the beauty that we feel in our hearts when we look at something that lights us up. Because beauty really truly is in the eye of the beholder. And I wouldn't even say that it's in the eye of the beholder. I would say it's in the heart of the beholder. Because beauty is, I think, synonymous with love. Where there is love, beauty will be seen. So this sort of Venusian energy of femininity and that female principle or that female polarity, another aspect that this version of self is bringing to light. She wants to shine awareness on those qualities as well. Very soft, very gentle, very loving, nurturing. And again, the masculine holds those qualities as well in their aligned expression. The masculine is very nurturing. The masculine is very gentle. The masculine is very compassionate and loving his way of doing it can look a little different, but it's the same energy. It's the Divine Father and the Divine Mother. I just heard the word or the name Selena. Selena feels to me similar to selenite. Actually, I'm interested. I want to see. Sorry, I'm just going to really quickly just pull up some information here because I want to see what Selena means. Name, meaning. The moon, yeah. Meaning moon, a form of Selena. Selena is a girl's name of Greek origin, meaning moon. This sweet-sounding name is rooted in ancient mythos, inspired by the moon goddess Selene. Okay, yeah, that makes sense as well, because the moon is connected to the ocean. It's a feminine quality. Selenite is named after that because it's connected to the moon and the ocean. So, yeah, it feels like that is another feminine archetype that wants to come forward. So it's a moon goddess type of energy, being connected to the cycles of life, being connected to the cleansing ability, because that's what the moon and the ocean kind of represent as well. There's this cleansing quality to it, purifying, going through the cycles, the natural cycles of life very easily, flowing as the tide flows in and out. The moon is in a perpetual state of being, but it does transition through these cycles. So thank you, Aphrodite, Venus, Selena, these feminine archetypes, Mother Mary as well. And she's come up before in regard to the sort of archetypes of your higher self, your soul self, your expressions, using that or embodying that feminine essence. Those archetypes and those representations through the goddesses is another way that we can connect to that polarity. So as this applies to your life, what they're showing me is honoring the natural cycles. So letting go of needing things to be a certain way at a certain time. For example, wanting something to be completed at this certain time and then getting frustrated or upset when it's not. Wanting something for someone else to occur in a specific way, having an expectation, and then being disappointed or even angry if it doesn't work out that way. Stepping into the feminine essence is being more receptive and in tune with the natural pace of things. So it does bring up this energy of patience. And it's this inner patience that comes from this natural attunement to the flow of life. So you're not forcing it. You're just allowing it to be, and you're honoring what it is in the moment. So again, being very mindful and very present helps this energy of that feminine essence to just very naturally flow. There's less resistance, and that can show up as actual more ease and less resistance in what's going on around you, how you're interacting with your environment, with your family, with, situations that arise. You're just more at ease with it because you understand and are in flow with how things naturally progress. A lot of this hinges on trust, which again, it's a feminine quality in this essence, but anything that belongs to the feminine is also present in the masculine. So that trust is there in the masculine as well, in its highest expression. That trust for him comes up in the form of inner strength and fortitude, determination, and again, being very aware and mindful of the connection with nature, especially as that relates to the physical body. So the masculine definitely feels more oriented towards the physical, although in that physical is the spiritual. And then the feminine feels more oriented towards the spiritual, the non-physical, but also about how that can be expressed through the physical. So again, same energy, just two kind of different directions of it. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. So that's everything that came up from this session around the divine feminine and divine masculine. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks so much for listening.